A secret menu. No one knows when or where it first started, but restaurants and companies have been using them for decades. There is an allure and excitement for us to order something that's not on the regular menu, something different. But the thing about secret menus is they are not meant to be secret. They were actually designed to be experienced by the customer in the know. Sometimes Christianity, church, and the Bible can seem like a secret menu, but all the ingredients are there, and they are meant to be experienced. In this series, let's take a look at a few Christian items that we might not be familiar with, and then let's go experience them together.
So the night before Jesus died, him and his disciples were celebrating Passover. Passover was a Jewish celebration that they did annually to celebrate the rescuing of God's people out of enslavement from Egypt. It had been happening for about 1,000+ years before this very night. And on this particular night, when they were celebrating the meal of Passover, which they call a Seder, Jesus explains to his disciples what these symbols that are used in Passover really mean. First, he talked about the bread, which is called matzah. It's bread that's pierced and striped and without leaven, which symbolizes sin. And how it's broken. And Jesus says, this is my body. So then in the Passover meal, there's also 4 cups of wine that they drank. The third cup of wine is the wine of redemption. And when they get to that cup, Jesus says, this cup is my blood. It's the cup of the new covenant of redemption of humanity. So in this one meal, Jesus redefines these symbols, these guys that have been celebrating Passover their whole life. And so as we take communion today and we take the bread and the cup, we get to remember Jesus and his sacrifice for us and the renewed and restored relationship that brings us with God. So in 1 Corinthians, Paul says this about communion. And when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, this is my body for which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. In the same way also he took the cup after supper, saying, this cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. This is why we continue to celebrate communion today, as a remembrance of what Jesus did. There's nothing secretive about it. It's a sacrament that we continue on as the church.
So when my wife and I lived in Albuquerque, we just had one son, Xander, at the time. And he was 2, and every Friday I didn't work. So I would take Xander out for special Fridays. And it seems like once a month we'd always end up at Starbucks. And we would go to Starbucks, and it doesn't sound special. We just get hot chocolate, cake pops, and I get coffee. We'd sit down, and he'd be so excited, like slobbering, and couldn't contain himself. And we'd sit down and just share a cake pop, and I just ask him 2-year-old questions. Like, what's your favorite color? What do you think about this? And just basic things. And there's nothing special. There was all sorts of other people at Starbucks. And same coffee, same hot chocolate, same cake pop every week. But what made it special was who I was doing it with and what it symbolized to me. Like that reinforced I was a dad. And this is my son. I love him. And these little moments are less about what we're eating, and it's so much more about who we're eating with. See, because of who I was with is what made it special, not what we were having.
When I was in my early 20s, I had an opportunity to be a part of a college-age ministry. It was in South Dakota. It was right at the base of Mount Rushmore. It was beautiful. It was awesome. I spent the whole summer there with about 10 other young adults. Now, during this time, we would go and we would help people, we would serve people, and we'd also have team time where we'd gather together as friends. We'd definitely eat meals. We'd hang out. We'd share stories. And this one night, we got together and we're eating, sharing stories, sharing wins from the week, what was going really well. And then we were going to have a time of prayer and communion. Now, I'd been a Christian for a while. I knew what prayer and communion were. And so we pray, and then we're getting ready to have communion. And what I'm expecting is juice and bread. So I close my eyes and we're praying. And when I opened my eyes, I was shocked. Our leader had a little bit of a surprise for us. He had a secret for us. And instead, when I opened my eyes, instead of seeing bread and juice, what I saw was Dr. Pepper and goldfish crackers. I'm thinking to myself, like, this is wrong. This isn't, like, you can't do it this way. This is not communion. Does God even honor this? Like, how in the world can we do this when this isn't how Jesus did it? What is communion in the first place? And then it hit me. Something that I hadn't understood up until that point. It was never about the what. It was always about the who.
My favorite restaurant experiences have been because of two reasons: really great people and really good food. And secret menus add so much more to that excitement. In really good secret menus, this is what they get right. It's all about the basics. Picture this: Jesus is sitting having a meal with his people, good food. And they're sitting around enjoying, and it's the night before he was going to be crucified. And he passes around bread and he says, "This is my body, take and eat." So they all take and eat. They pass around a cup. He says, "This is my blood, take and drink." And they kind of look around, they do it. And this was symbolizing and foreshadowing what was about to happen. That Jesus was about to have his body broken for us. He was about to have his blood shed for us. And that's exactly what we do when we take communion. When we take of the bread, when we drink of the cup, we are remembering and honoring his sacrifice for us. We are acknowledging that he is who he says he is and that we need him. The same way that we eat food to fill us and sustain us, we also take communion to remember that it is Jesus who fills us, who sustains us, who gives us new life. So communion is something that is meant to be experienced. So, come to the table. Just like a secret menu is meant to be experienced. We want to experience communion together. So, let's do that.